Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Hello and welcome to this Friday Postcast. I'm Maddie Plell, joined in the studio by Graham Rodway. We have David Jennings on the line, as well as James Ryan from Paddy Power. We're going to preview now the weekend's action. We've got action from everywhere, really. Newcastle is our main port of call. ITV Racing there covering the Northumberland Plate, which is the highlight tomorrow. Let's start off with the 150, which is the Betfair Exchange handicap over 6 furlongs. We've got a really nice informed horse in here, Air Raid, who's won his last 2 at Hamilton. James, I presume he heads your market.
He does indeed, man. And we're 4 places here as well, but he's the 7-2 favourite. Cosmic Law is 4-1, Dalton 11-2, Staxton 8-1, and Nick Vedder 8-1. It's 10-1 bar.
Fabulous. G-Rod, what was your initial thoughts when looking at this race?
Well, the first thing to say is that there was a really weird old day at Newcastle on Thursday. I mean, the track seemed to be riding like really testing.
Yeah.
You know, they were going on about the sun drying it out, and when it dries out, you know, it can be really, really hard work, and it really looked like it. There was a race, the big race, the mile handicap, which Military Law won. They went an absolute bonkers pace early on. You know, they have the little sectional things in the bottom on the Sky Sports Racing now. There's fast, whatever, and I was thinking, well, they're all going to die up the straight, and they're all going to, you know, get really tired, and somebody's going to come from behind. But they didn't. They just kept plodding on in front. It was like watching them finish to a 3-mile chase.
It was, wasn't it?
And then there was a race later on, which Danny Tudhope won. He won virtually every race there on Thursday. And again, it was trained by Keith Dalgleish, first-time visor, cruised through, and then the first 2 had a fantastic battle all the way to the line. It was like 15 lengths back to the third. It was like strung out like the washing. And obviously it's a beautiful forecast, beautiful day today, and I don't know how that works. Do they water the surface or whatever? I don't know whether it's going to be really dry again, whether it could be really testing. I just got no idea how it's going to ride, and it seemed to be throwing up some weird results. Well, that's my excuse for some poor tips anyway.
Does that mean you're going to be looking at horses that are really strong stayers, that are prominent racers?
Well, that's exactly my point in this race. Is I reckon it might be worth taking a chance on Von Blucher at a massive price. Now, I know that anyone that is a regular podcast watcher or listener might know that this is one of my favourite horses in training. I virtually always tip Von Blucher when he runs, and he's been very disappointing recently, but he is very well handicapped as a result. And some of his best form has come at Newcastle. He won at the track over 7 furlongs. Now, the problem with Von Blucher is he is a really not a 6 furlong horse at all. He really is a 6.5, 7 furlong horse, and he wants quite a stiff test at 6.
Perfect then, by the sounds
Well,
of it.
will the ground be riding slow enough for him? This sounds completely nonsense, doesn't it? Talking about the ground, all weather and stuff like that. You think it should be a consistent surface, but if it's riding like it was there on Thursday, really, really testing, then horses on Thursday were winning that had been running over longer trips because they had the stamina in reserves. And I'm going to work on the assumption that that might happen again here with Von Blucher, because he definitely wants a stiff test at the 6 furlong trip, and he's going to be a good price.
Yeah, James, what price can we get about him?
He's 20-1.
There you go, so fairly decent odds then. DJ, what do you think of this contest?
Yeah, in a roundabout way, I had a similar theory to Rodders, but I'm not tipping the same horse. But it did look really, really hard work, and they're calling it standard to slow at the minute the surface. So I think you've got to pick horses that will cope with that type of a test. And the one I fell down on was Cosmic Law, a bit more obvious than Graham's. But I just thought with Cosmic Law, won at Epsom on soft last year. It's probably its best display when it beat Usain Bolt by 6 lengths. Really cope with the ground that day. I thought it ran quite well in the Coventry behind Calix. I think it finished about 4th in his group. And he's one of these horses where he's rated 97, but he started off 100. So he's down a couple of pounds from the mark he started off handicapping, whereas Air Raid started off winning 2 starts ago off 82 and is now up to 95. And you just wonder how much more improvement there is to come from Air Raid, whereas you know Cosmic Law has the potential to get to a little bit of a higher level. I think Air Raid is probably, I think the handicapper has his grasp now, and just the fact that Cosmic Law should cope with conditions, we know he's a pretty decent sprinter, and for me, he's the most, as Graham would say, the most solid option.
I like that. Yeah, Woodcote winner, as you say, sort of lost his way a little bit, but he's been running really well so far this season. 2nd at Chester and then 4th in a good race at York last time, Cosmic Law. So I can understand that angle for sure. James, who are you siding with?
I'm going for Nick Vedder here, but I did The last two that I had on my list were Von Blucher and Nick Vedder, but I ended up sticking with Nick Vedder essentially because of his course form. Like, he's run in Newcastle 10 times and never been out of the top 3, and with 4 places on offer, I just think he could be, be very hard to get out of that top 4. Now, he will need to be switched off and come late, but he has form over 7 furlongs and a mile, so I don't think he'll have any problem staying. The last couple of times he hasn't settled great, but there's a bit of pace around him with deep intrigue drawn just on his outside, so I think he could get a lovely run into the race. Azzini's riding really well at the moment. He rode Power Darkness really cold the other day, and I think he'll ride this horse really cold as well. I think he's a good old chance and he'll be finishing fast. Yeah,
I've got to admit, he was the one on my list. I thought he was the most interesting horse in the race. As you say, excellent course and distance form, and he's the sort of horse who I think he could be suited by that sort of come late and pick up the pieces sort of ride. We'll move on to the 225 at Newcastle again. The Betfair Exchange Chip Chase Stakes, a Group 3, again over 6 furlongs. Now, this is obviously a much better race. 7 days ago, Invincible Army finished 7th in the Diamond Jubilee at Royal Ascot. Interesting move that he's been brought out again so quickly, DJ.
Yeah, very interesting, and I'm very lucky because I was quite interested in Glorious Journey for this race earlier on in the week, and very tempted to back him with the theory of Invincible Army was favoured at the time, didn't think he'd run, and thought that Glorious Journey would go off a lot shorter. Thankfully, he's been switched to Newmarket now after Invincible Army was declared here, and I think that Invincible Army will probably win. It's a big ask to come back from the Diamond Jubilee, but worst case scenario, probably his worst run of the season was in the Diamond Jubilee. He was beaten 5 lengths. Worst case scenario is probably that he runs to that level again. And you know what? It might just about be good enough. He was a little bit disappointing, and when Blue Point went for his race, he just didn't have the natural speed to go with him. But I think his RPO was 106. I think if you ran to about 110 in this race, I think it'll probably be good enough. He's won from 1 in the all-weather. He won at Kempton. I know that's not much to go on, but he's the best horse in the race. Like, if he didn't go to Ascot, just say, and he came straight to this race, what price would he be? Yeah. I would say maybe 8 to 11, 4 to 6. So if you can forgive him a little bit for Ascot, when things didn't really go right and didn't get the clearest of runs, I know he's disappointing, but to me, he's the most likely winner, and he's probably a small bit of value.
Okay, do you think this is his level? He's maybe not an out-and-out Group 1 horse, is he?
Yeah, I think in them top sprints, I think it's
he never seems to deliver for me in those really good races.
No, you have to really get used to them, and he's probably still a little bit inexperienced for those really, really good sprints. You look at the likes of Dream of Dreams, who produced a career best in the Diamond Jubilee. It's been taking him ages and seasons to get the hang of sprinting. He's finally got the hang of it. And I think with Invincible Army, for some of them, it's just a little shock to the system, and it might take them a while just to become that real proven performer in the top sprint. So I think this is his level. I agree. And if he doesn't win this, serious warning signs out. Okay.
G-Rod, Mr. Lupton's a horse I've got a Marmite sort of relationship with. Won the Greenland Stakes last time out. Obviously, that form's working out well with Speaking Colours second. He ran a really good race in the Diamond Jubilee we were just talking about. What do you think of his chances?
Yeah, I love Mr. Lupton. He's one of my favourites. You know where he's going to be ridden. You know how he's going to run. He just sort of always out the back, and then flies home, no matter whether the trip be 5 or 6. And he never looked like he was going to lose in that day at the Curragh. Jamie Spencer was riding it, and he was in the middle of an absolute red-hot run of form where I think he'd won on 4 of his last 6 rides, and he was brimful of confidence. And when Jamie Spencer's riding like that on a horse like Mr. Lupton, then you always got to take note. It was very, very impressive victory. Use one of my favourite sayings there about Invincible Army. Every horse has their level. You know, I'm a big believer that every horse has their level, and I think this might be Invincible Army's level. However, I'm not convinced that this is his distance. I know he's won over 6 furlongs, but I think he's more of a speed horse, to be honest. I think his best form is on speed tracks, like at York, for example. He was very good there. Doncaster is a very fair test. And I'm not convinced that a stiff 6 furlongs at Newcastle on potentially slow surface will suit him. And I think he might be vulnerable to a finisher like Mr. Lupton or Above the Rest, who won the race last year and has some solid form over 7 furlongs, a strong stare at the distance. I'm not really confident on either, but I would be taking on the favourite, probably with Lupton.
Yeah, okay. What prices can we get about Invincible Army, James?
He's our 13-to-8 favourite at the moment. Laugh a Minute is 3 to 1. Mr. Lupton 7 to 2. Above the Rest 8 to 1. Island of Life 8 to 1, and Encrypted is 14s.
And how can you see the race playing out?
I kind of looked at it very similar to DJ. I won't repeat too much, but I didn't think he ran that badly at Ascot. He travelled really well for a long way of the race, and I think pretty much a reappearance of that should have him win here. He should be just a couple of pounds better than these, even though he is getting given £5 to the likes of Above the Rest and Island of Life. And Island of Life should stay and go on well, but I think Invincible Army should just be good enough.
OK, keeping it simple, the 3 o'clock is the Betfair Exchange Northumberland Vars handicap. It's the consolation race for the Northumberland Plate, over 2.5 miles of furlong now. Charlie Fellows, he's a really likeable up-and-coming trainer, of course won the Sandringham with Thanks Be at Royal Ascot, and he saddles a really progressive stay here in Carnwennan. I think again he'd be one that would be towards the top of your market, James.
He is indeed. He's our 9-2 favourite. Coeur de Leon 11-2, Canford Heights 7-1, Rare Groove 8-1 along with Michael's Mount, and the Glasgow Warrior 9-1 as 12-1 bar. Yeah,
everyone's got to remember Royal Ascot form coming to the fore here in the shape of Coeur de Leon, who was 5th behind the Grand Vizier in the Ascot Stakes. G-Rod, who's your selection?
I backed Coeur de Leon that day. He ran well. I liked Rare Groove here for Jed O'Keefe. Yeah.
Yes, I know that John Dancer's fuming that he didn't get a spot in the plate, of course.
Yeah. Jed O'Keefe's starting to hit a bit of form, and I thought this one would improve for a step up in distance. He looks like a real strong stayer. Won nicely at Hamilton 2 starts ago, and last time at York he was down the field. But that was in quite a hot race, won by First 11. I think that was a very strong form. Much probably stronger than this race, especially as he's going up to 2 miles. He's still unexposed at the distance. This is the sort of race where, as you've already said, the potential improvers tend to get in this race and they don't get in the big one. And this happens in a lot of the big, particularly staying handicaps nowadays, is you have to be rated so highly nowadays that the improvers just struggle to get in these races. So often the big staying handicaps are won by exposed types, but the race with the future and the look for the future going forward is often the consolation race. And I thought that Rare Groove was the big improver in this race, so he'd be for me Rare Groove.
Yeah, he sort of struck me as a really strong stayer, and he's still unexposed at trips like this, as you say. DJ, who do you fancy in the Vars?
I fancy an old favourite of mine. I know Graham was talking about his guilty pleasures there, but I like Seymour, who we've only seen once in the last 2 years, and there's just a couple of things. The reason I'm going to make my case for Seymour, first of all, second time out each season seems to be the time to catch Seymour. He won the second time out in 2014. He won in the second start in 2015. In 2016, if you remember, it was probably my most excruciating punting moment. I tipped Seymour on this very podcast at a nice price. He was backed into favouritism, but I think he was 12-1 on the Friday. He traded at 101 for huge money and was somehow collared by Antiquarium. It was just one of these horrible moments when the camera angle changed and you were stuffed. Then in 2017, he was trained for the race again, was sent off a short enough price and looked like he would play a big part in the Northumberland Plate, and was just ran out of it in the end. And I would imagine that Brian Ellison has had either the Plate or this race on his mind for this horse for the last good few months. He obviously badly needed to run at Newcastle on his return to action. He's down to a mark of 93. He hasn't been rated that low since 2015. Loves Newcastle. We've seen that time and time again. And the jockey takes off £3. I just think, given the fact that he loves the surface so much, and this is the time to catch him, I think he's a potential plunge horse. I could see plenty of money for him on Saturday. He's a horse I've always liked, and there could just be one last hurrah, and I'm hoping this will be it.
Yeah, he's certainly had his fans along the way, hasn't he? Not sure he's one to rely on necessarily, though, is he? He really needs to put it all together, that's for sure. James, who did you fancy in this?
David's taken the words out of my mouth here. Gone for Seymour as well. Pretty much everything he said I'd be backing up. I think when I was looking at the race, I was kind of thinking he still could be a 100 horse, which then would mean that he has £10 in hand. And I was kind of looking at the rest of the race. A lot of them are progressive and everything, but could they have that in hand? And obviously at the price, then I think it would give him a right chance. I actually thought he ran quite well in Newcastle the last day. He travelled really well, kind of still had his same old enthusiasm. Clearly that wasn't, going to be his D-Day. I think Ben Robinson's a nearly free £3. He's very, very solid rider. I just think at the prices at the moment, he's definitely the play for me. He's 16-1 at the moment.
Yeah, so that's it.
one thing on Seymour as well. Brian Ellison has only had one winner in the last fortnight, so you kind of be going, I'm a little bit worried about stable form. But he's had 3 seconds and 2 thirds, and his seconds, he's had a second at 20-1, and he's had a third at 40-1. So when I look into the stable form, and you see winners, sometimes isn't always the best gauge to use, and his team are coming into form gradually. He had a winner over Jumps at Market Raisin last week, so I think they're just coming into form now, Brian Ellison's team.
Yeah, this is a meeting he always targets, isn't it? So don't be too worried about that. Let's move on to the big one then, which is the 335. It is, again, the Betfair Exchange Northumberland Plate Handicap. And there's been a fair old gamble on one in this. Gibbs Hill, been absent for 724 days. James, how much money have you seen for him?
It's kind of been bits and pieces, to be honest, Maddie. It's kind of one of those things where it kind of took off a little bit, and we kind of got under the market on him, and hasn't been a whole lot. But at the moment, he's our favourite anyway at 130. I'd imagine he'll end up going back out as people end up finding other horses to back. Stratham is our second favourite, 13-2. Pershima is 10-1. King's Advice 10-1. Red Galileo 12-1, and there's a heap of them then on 12-1. So 12-1 bar. We'll
give you first shout this time then, so no one steals your thunder. Who's your selection?
It's a really, really competitive race, but I've landed on kind of one. I'm taking a bit of a chance. It feels like Desert Skyline has been around for quite a while, but he's only a 5-year-old. He's been running in all the top staying races, and this is his first run in a handicap for 2 years. In the last couple of group and stakes races, his last 10 runs, of which Stradivarius has won 6 of them, so he's kind of been competing at that really top level. The handicapper has dropped him a few pounds to allow him to compete in these type of races. I still think he's unexposed in this company, and I don't think he's run too badly this season, running well for a long way, and then kind of Massey easing up on the last bit, so he's kind of been beaten 12 lengths and 16 lengths, but not been given too hard a time. And at 33-1, I'm willing to take a chance on him in what could be a very competitive race.
Yeah, he's definitely got the quality. Strikes me as he's always such a slow sort of stayer, isn't he, G-Rod? He grinds it out. With Hold last year's winner, he's out of this, so definitely no one be placing bets on him, but plenty of other really sort of nice horses who could be coming back to form here.
Yeah, couldn't be having the favourite. I suspect a lot of people will be thinking like this. James has probably summed that up already, saying the horse will drift back out.
Yeah.
I'll be surprised if it goes off as short as it is currently, because everyone's surely going to be looking and going, that's too short for a horse who hasn't run for so long. Of course.
But would that worry you in a big race like this as well?
It's
a big absence.
Yeah, it would certainly worry me. Obviously trained by Roger Varian, and they did land a huge gamble with Kate Byron in the Wokingham. And if Gibbs Hill does continue to be in smashed, he'll probably win, but I don't think he will be. Stratum is another horse with the potential to be in smashed, obviously owned by Tony Bloom, and Tony Bloom owned horses landed some big gambles last season. So that one is another one potential for money. I thought it was a really, really hard race. I liked Ian Williams, 2 runners, Time to Study, bounced back to form last time at Royal Ascot, finished 3rd in the Ascot Stakes, and he was in front with a furlong to go, only got run down in the final strides. He finished 6th in this race last year off a £12 higher mark, so he's really well treated on his best form, and Ian Williams excels with this sort of horse, and Kieran McAvoy is an interesting jockey book in there. My only worry is, does he really stay a stiff 2 miles? I know that it was 2.5 miles last time and he was in front with a furlong to go, but all of his wins are over shorter, and it's just a nagging doubt for me. I know a lot of people say that's nonsense, but I'd still remain unconvinced that this is his trip. Maybe he wants slightly shorter. And the other Ian Williams runner, Speedo Boy. Now, he should stay because he's won a 2 mile 5 furlong.
He had a bit of money coming for him midweek.
Yeah, he was well backed, and he stays 2 mile 5 furlongs on the over hurdles. He won a handicap hurdle at Cheltenham, didn't he, over the winter? So he definitely stays. The other one that I was interested in was Mutasadir, who we do not know stays at all, but Hugo Palmer has a good record when sending runners up to Newcastle, and this one has got a great record on the all-weather and a terrible record on turf, so his last 3 runs you can forget, but he's back on the all-weather. I think he will stay this far. He shapes like a stayer to me, and I think he's a potential improver. So I've thrown, 3 horses at you there.
Yeah.
I can't make a decision between the 3 of them. I'll probably back them all, to be honest. They're 12, 14 and 20s. If you put me down to one, I'd probably back Speedo Boy, but I will back them all. Speedo Boy, Time to Study and Mutasadir.
Yeah, Mutasadir carries a lot of weight, but I remember speaking to Hugo Palmer when I think he'd only had a couple of runs, and he said he's a really confident that he was a really good horse. He had Melbourne Cup aspirations and all sorts. So, yeah, it's clearly a talented horse, but maybe just doesn't like turf. DJ, what do you think of this Northumberland plate?
Yeah, there's been a lot of horses mentioned so far, and mine hasn't. I'm really sweet on one here, and have been for the last week. Dubawi 50 is the one I like for Karen McClintock. Luke Morris has been booked for this a long time ago, and I just thought it was the ideal race for Dubawi 50 because we know he absolutely loves Newcastle. He's won twice there. He's been placed 3 times. Goes really well fresh. He's won first time out for the last 2 seasons. And you go back to last year's Ascot Stakes when he was second to Lagos to Vegas. Ran an absolute cracker from the front that day. Kind of sweated up and was quite keen, but just kept at it. And up that Newcastle home straight. That's what you want. You want one that's going to be prominent, that's going to really, really grind it out from the front, especially if conditions are the way we've seen on Thursday evening. Like if you look at the last 2 renewals of the race, obviously Withhold won the race last year, made all, and the year before Higher Power was never out with the first couple either. So I think you do need to be prominent, and I think that's going to be a big help. Drawn in stall 8, rated 100, and I still think there's a few pounds that Dubawi 50 I think can improve. He's a 6-year-old, but he's quite lightly raced. He's a horse that I think is just tailor-made for the race. She's a Northern trainer. This will be her dream to win this type of race. And I think with Dubawi 50, given how well he goes fresh, I'd imagine he's been laid out for it. So, yeah, I'd be fairly sweet on Dubawi 50.
Yeah, I know he had some problems, didn't he? But he ran a screamer at Royal Ascot last year, Dubawi 50. Really likeable horse for really likeable connections. So fingers crossed he can run a big race for Karen McClintock. Let's take a break now. There's still so much more action to keep on top of, so make sure you stay with us.
So, does an each-way bet mean that my horse has to do part of the race in reverse?
Everyone loves a newbie. That's why Paddy Power Games are giving all new customers 60 free spins on daily jackpot games. New Paddy Power Games customers only, 1 per customer. T's and C's apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to this Friday Postcast. Now we've gone through most of the action at Newcastle, but there's racing elsewhere on Saturday too on ITV, Newmarket and York, the other tracks. Let's start off with the 205 at Newmarket on the July course, of course. It's the Randox Health Empress Fillies Stakes, a listed race over 6 furlongs, and some really nice types in this. Summer Romance is a Godolphin filly by Kingman. She's a half-sister to Rosina, and she's also related to Zabeel Prince, so I'm sure she'll be popular. And surely looks one to follow after winning by 2 lengths at Yarmouth last time. Have you got the prices for this, James?
To have indeed. She is our 6-4 favourite, followed by Star Alexander at 11-4, Shamaz 5-1, Ursulina 8-1, Companion 10s, Rosadora 12s, and Amnaz 25s.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if this was necessarily the strongest race ever, but she looked like she could have had a bit of star quality about her last time. James, I'll go over to you first.
Sorry, yeah, I thought she looked really good. I think there's 2 really good fillies in this. I think Star Alexander is also a very good filly. On her run the last day, the time that she won, there was another maiden on the card over the same distance. It was a 3-year-old maiden. Now there were kind of 75 horses right in it, but she was over a second and a half faster than them, which is an incredible feat for a 2-year-old. Saying, you know, kind of equivalent to that, she was running to above 100 anyway. But I think I'd still have to stick to Summer Romance. I think she could be the Group 1 filly in this. Obviously she cost 800 grand in the Breeze Ups recently. Her run in Yarmouth has worked out pretty well, with the second having coming out and won a maiden by 3 lengths, albeit wasn't the strongest maiden in the world. But I really wouldn't be surprised if this turned into a Group 1 filly. I can see the top 2 at the head of the market shortening and everything else getting bigger. I think the 2 of these are a class apart, but Summer Romance for me here.
Yeah, I could certainly see that happening. What did you think of Summer Romance?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with James. Everything that he said there. I thought it was a two-horse race. Star Alexander's got the best form in the race. I thought that was very impressive last time. But I can't back anything else when Godolphin run 2-year-olds at Newmarket's July course. I mean, Newmarket July course, the record of Godolphin juveniles there is unbelievable. It is so good. They run all their best juveniles at Newmarket's July course every year. The maidens, you can just back them blind pretty much. The times that you can back, they have 3 or 4 in a race, and you can do full casts and they come in first and second. Godolphin run all their best 2-year-olds at Newmarket, and Summer Romance looked like one of their best 2-year-olds when she won first time out. It's a really tough race from a punting perspective, because I think Star Alexander has got the best form, but I think the Summer Romance has got the more potential, and they're both priced accordingly. It's not like one of them's massive. So it's a no-bet race with the possibility of seeing a superstar.
Yeah. Yeah, when I said I'm not sure it's a strong race, I sort of meant aside from those two. But I think there's some quality if you take them into account. Where do you think Summer Romance could end up? Would you think Group 1 aspiration?
Well, she's related to Resina, obviously a top-class filly, and she could be absolutely anything. But the same could be said of Clive Cox's filly. So I'm really looking forward to the race.
Yeah.
But not from a punting perspective.
Yeah, I certainly love these 2-year-old races. It's great to see the young talent coming through. DJ, what did you think?
Well, Godolphin have the best 2-year-old colt in Pinatubo, and I think they've the best 2-year-old filly as well, because I know it's only one small piece of evidence, but I thought Summer Romance was breathtaking at Yarmouth. It was effortless. It was like switching gears, and away she went. And when I seen she was entered in this race, I just presumed she'd be odds on. So it's a nice little shock to the system to see her such a big price. Now, Star Alexander is very good, and I have a feeling that race at Bath, it'll be interesting. There's a horse that finished 5th, I think, of Charlie Hills that runs today at either Doncaster or Yarmouth, runs and has a squeak. So it'll be interesting to see how that race is going to work out. But this Summer Romance, I just fell in love with her at Yarmouth. And this is going to be obviously a clip that's going to be played on Twitter next week, and he's going to ride no winner. But I'm going to make a suggestion that there is a strong possibility that James Doyle could go through the whole card at Newmarket on Saturday, because I went through each of the 7 races individually, and there was a recurring theme afterwards that I only realised after I did each race, and it was that every single race, every single horse I fancied in those individual races was ridden by James Doyle. So if James Doyle does have a 7-timer and does a Frankie on Saturday, I'm hoping this clip will be played on Twitter next week. But the big chance is that he will have no winner, and this clip will definitely be played on Twitter next week. But the Magnificent 7 at Newmarket on Saturday for James Doyle for me.
Yeah, in which case the 3:15, the Randox Health Criterion Stakes, a Group 3 over 6, is going to go to Glorious Journey then, you think, DJ?
Yeah, this is probably my strongest fancy of the day, Glorious Journey. I just think he's a sprinter that we haven't seen the best of. We have definitely seen the best of Lamato. He's on the way down. I think Glorious Journey is on the way up. Obviously bumped into Cape Byron at Ascot. That was a really good run that's worked out quite well in the Victoria Cup. And then that race at Windsor, when he was beaten by Dream of Dreams.
I backed him that day.
Yeah, I thought he did a lot right that day, I have to say. I thought, to me, he looked like a sprinter that was going places. It's been a gradual process with him. He had a lot of runs last season, and it was only towards the latter stage of the last season that I thought he was really getting the hang of the game. You have to remember, at Sean T on a second start last season, he was running over 1 mile and 1. So he was running over 1 mile for the most of last season. I think he's a proper sprinter, and I think the uphill stiff finish at Newmarket is really going to suit him on the July course. To me, I think he should be favoured. I know Lamato is favourite based on basically the fact that Lamato has been there, he's done it, he's got plenty of t-shirts, but he's just not the horse he was. And I was a little bit disappointed with him at York. I thought the race was there for the taking 2 furlongs out, and he just didn't have that instant acceleration that he used to have. And for me, Glorious Journey is my strongest fancy anywhere on Saturday.
Nice, I'm with you on Glorious Journey. I mean, he won his novice over the course and distance, didn't he? I know he bought for a lot of money, and then there was lots of hype around him, but I think, as we were saying earlier, it takes these sprinters a while to get back in the groove, and I don't know, I really, really like this horse. G-Rod, what did you think?
I didn't fancy Glorious Journey at all. I thought Dream of Dreams absolutely hammered him at Windsor. I thought Dream of Dreams won with loads in hand, and I thought Glorious Journey was well beaten. And I'm well happy that he's favourite here, because I'm more than happy to take him on, and I'm happy to take Lamato on too, under the penalty, £5 penalty for Lamato. Going to really struggle, I think, under that sort of penalty. He's not going forward anymore at his current age. This has got a lovely race set up for it. One of the better bets of the day runs. Sadly, DJ is on the wrong one. Card Sharp. Okay. Now this one is a really interesting runner. Frankie Dettori is at Newmarket on Saturday for just 2 rides, and the one in the first doesn't appear to have much chance for Mark Johnston. He must be there for this one, Card Sharp. And it was a very impressive winner at York 2 outings ago on quick ground. And I think that form would be good enough. He's got a good record on these sorts of tracks, these sort of fast 7 furlong tracks like York. And
he won the July Stakes here, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely loves it here. Now, he was well beaten at Ascot last week. Royal Ascot finished 26th for 28, but that was on soft ground. and his last few runs at Ascot, 26th, 8th, 17th, 15th, 13th. I mean, he doesn't like Ascot at all. You know, none of his best form is at Ascot recently. I know he was placed there in a group race as a juvenile, but for me, he's much better on this sort of course. And the quick ground is going to suit him down to the ground. And I just think that's a massively eye-catching booking for Frankie on Card Sharp. And he's like he's double the price. I took getting my maths right. He's double the price of Glorious Journey, and for me, he's got a much better chance.
Okay, just clarify what prices we can get about them, James.
Lamata was our favourite, 15-8, Glorious Journey 130, Sudwall 5-1, Tabarak 6-1, Card Sharp 8s, Breton Rock 14s, and Larchman Lad 14s.
Okay, thanks. And whose side are you on? Are you with me and DJ, or are you with G-Rod?
I am indeed. I'm on Glorious Journey here. I just think he looks very solid. The form got a good boost. I thought the Tin Man ran really well, and he's one that I'd be keeping in the tracker for when he's going later on the season. I think he'll be overpriced. I think 7 furlongs could be his ideal trip, and obviously he's getting £5 off Lamato. He's a horse I've liked for a long time. After he won his maiden, I ended up backing him anti-post for the Guineas, which obviously didn't work out very well. So hopefully my early optimism on him will pay off for the first time in British soil since his novice win.
Okay, we're going to go over to York now for the 245, the Sun Racing Handicap again, 6 furlong race this. Now, I'm wondering if one of you guys can explain something to me, because every time he runs, this Great Prospector seems to be really, really well backed. Obviously, he was third behind Safe Voyage on his penultimate start, and then third behind good old Firmament last time out at York, but I just don't get it, really. I mean, I feel like he's been given a couple of chances now in these big handicaps, and although he's still a young horse, I don't know. James, I know he's favourite again, so people clearly like him.
Yeah, well, I think he's run well the last couple of times. He's still kind of unexposed, I suppose, a little bit at this level. People probably are looking, saying that he is on a decent mark when still looking back at his as a 2-year-old form, but that is quite a good bit ago. Again, it's kind of one of those things. I remember in the Lincoln we were seeing a good bit of money for him even at the 20-1 mark. But he's probably just one of those horses that'll keep being backed until he wins one of these. Yeah,
probably. Go through the rest of them then, just so we have the full market.
I will indeed. He's our 8-1 favourite, followed by Lake Vault at 9-1, Intisab 10-1, Soldier's Minute 10-1, Wentworth Falls 10-1, Growl 10-1, Golden Apollo 10-1, Quick Look 10-1 is 12-1 bar.
Thanks. All the old favourites in here then, G-Rod.
Yeah, typical old York sprint, isn't it? All the old favourites, all the York favourites, and I'm going to tip one of them. Golden Apollo, loves it at York, dropped back to a nice mark and returned to the course last time to finish 5th behind Firmament and Great Prospector. That was over 7. I'm hoping this is over 6. It is. I think 6 is his trip. The only worry is the ground. All of his best form is with a bit of cut, but he has won on good firm ground at York. And as we've said many times on this podcast, ground is the most overrated factor in punting, in my opinion. So I'm more than happy to take a chance on him on quick ground, because he's won on quick ground, even though all his best form's on soft.
Okay, yeah, I like that, definitely. You know, put your neck on the line, why not? DJ, I'm getting prepared for Great Prospector to win here and make me look an absolute fool. So hopefully one of us will be right with our shouts about James Doyle and Great Prospector.
Yeah, hopefully Doyle will do the business at Newmarket. Right on cue, I fancy Great Prospector.
Come on then, no, I'm being serious. Explain to me what it is about this horse.
I just think I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. I just, when I look back at the race at York last time, to me he looked like he just didn't quite get home over 7. And now I know he was tried over a mile, and he ran obviously at Doncaster early on in the season. To me, he just always looked a sprinter, and I think at York, when things do fall into place, I think with these sprinters, so much has to go right. There's so little margin for error. The closing of a gap, being drawn on the wrong side, going at the right time. There's just so much that needs to go right, and I think they almost take it in turns winning these type of races. And I think just this could be Great Prospector's day. He looks quite well drawn. There's plenty of pace near him and in around him. And when I watched the race, both at Haydock and at York the last twice, to me, he just looked like the type that just needed to drop him back a furlong to 6. So he's obviously back over 6 here. Look, maybe he doesn't deserve to be favourite, but I think he's going to run his race. And to me, when I went through the race, he was the one who I thought was the most likely winner. Now, I can see where you're coming from. He is always fancied. And like the last twice, he was a single figure price. Well, maybe he didn't deserve to be. But I think this might just be the one chance he's going to get this season to win one of these races, and hopefully he can take it.
Yeah, I'm probably being a bit harsh. I mean, that's still good form, isn't it? And he's still been running well, so I'm sure it'll make me look a fool.
I mean, we're going back to like his debut, so I'm with you.
Well, hold on a second.
Okay.
This is the same man that tipped Card Sharp because, he ran on soft ground at Ascot. You can forget that. And then he goes, ground is the most overrated thing I've ever heard in my life. So that was in the space of 30 seconds.
Well, when it suits.
When it suits. Okay.
Absolutely.
James, what do you think? Who's your selection?
We're 5 places here, and I really like Sir Maximilian here at the prices 25 to 1. He ran an absolute belter in the Woking. He got no run at all. He got stopped at the 2 furlong pole, and then he got murdered about 150 yards from the finish, and he finished 17th. So people are just going to look at this and not particularly like him. But even with all that interference, the only horses that finished the final furlong faster than him were the first 6 home. So I think the market could really miss him tomorrow. I think he'll be definitely overpriced. You only have to look at Wentworth Falls, who he's beat 2 starts ago, and he's a 10 to 1 shot, while Sir Maximilian is 25. So I think he's a really good chance.
Yeah, I think
My selection. Can I change my selection? I'll go for Sir Maximilian too.
Go on, why?
That was brilliant.
Yeah, it was good.
That was proper analysis, not bullshit that I'd be coming out with. That was excellent.
Yeah, I like that. I liked him at Royal Ascot, and as you say, I didn't notice he was that unlucky, but he definitely didn't seem to have the rub of the green, so maybe I need to go and watch that race back. Anyway, one race which we will all be watching back a couple of times, I'm sure, is the Irish Derby at the Curragh. It's the 5:20 Dubai GT3 Irish Derby. It's a Group 1 over a mile and a half, and we've got the 1-2-4 from Epsom reappearing. Do you think that's going to be the same order in which they finish this time around, G-Rod?
I think that the winner will win again, which is a shame, because I would have liked to have hammered DJ for tipping the favourite, because I know he's going to tip the favourite. He always does in these sorts of races, but I just think he's just the typical Aidan O'Brien Derby winner, wins the English Derby, goes to Ireland, wins the Irish Derby.
How strong do you think the division is?
I don't know. It's hard to tell, isn't it?
I'm not convinced it's really, really strong.
Can I tell you something? That there's one that's way ahead of the rest of them, and I mean way ahead, and that is Japan.
Didn't that finish third in the Derby? Or?
Yeah, but he had a terrible prep, didn't he, for that? I think you could be right there, DJ. The vibes certainly say that. But anyway, we'll go back to you. Anthony Van Dyke, what do you think of his Epsom performance? Because not many derbies are won on that sort of golden highway up the inside. I mean, I know Sir Percy did it, but it seems recently they could swoop down the outside.
Yeah, it was a bizarre race. I thought that I was going to win. I can't remember what I backed. Sir Dragonet. I thought Sir Dragonet was going to win, and it swooped down the outside, like you say, and then suddenly Anthony Van Dyke come up the inside, and there was like 4 in a row. That always makes you think, are they that good?
Yeah.
But then sometimes you see races where there's like 4 or 5 in a row, and you get like 6 winners come out of it next time, and it's all a load of nonsense. I don't know how strong that form is. Until we start seeing them come out, we won't find out, I suspect. But we don't have to worry about it here, because the Irish Derby every year is like a rerun of the English Derby nowadays, with the way that Aidan O'Brien dominates both races. It's really just a Ballydoyle run-off to see whether the winner can win again, or whether something else is going to come on again and beat them. And I don't think it will. I think Anthony Van Dyke will win, and then we can go on to actually seeing if he's any good later in the season against the older horses. The one thing he does look to do more than anything else is stay, doesn't it? He looks like he's more a sort of stamina horse than a speed horse. Is he by Galileo? I think he is. I remember Aidan waxing lyrical about how great Galileo was as a sire afterwards, which is fair comment, obviously. But he looks a stayer, and I think he'll win.
Yeah. DJ, from where I'm sat, it looks to me like it would make sense for the Ballydoyle lads to want Anthony Van Dyke to do the double. You know, it makes them a far more appealing stallion prospect. They've got plenty in there who can help set a really strong pace. That could get Mad Moon out of his comfort zone. On the Epsom form, Broome can't really improve past Anthony Van Dyke, can he?
Yeah, just on the Derby, like the only 2 real pieces of evidence we have, whether it's a good race or not, are Japan and Circus Maximus. Circus Maximus finished
That's
sixth.
true, yeah.
And he obviously won the St. James's Palace Stakes, and Japan for me was the most impressive winner in the entire week at Royal Ascot, and I think he could win the Arc. So at the moment, the only two pieces of evidence we have suggest it was pretty decent Derby for all that they finished in a big lump. But I've watched the race at Epsom over and over and over again. I can't tell you how many times I've watched it, because I really want to either Mad Moon or Broome to find reasons why they will reverse that form. And I really can't, and I really, really did try. I just think when I watched everything from... I thought he handled the track worse than the others at Epsom. I thought he got into more trouble than the others. He tried to switch out at the 2 furlong pole, then he went in, then he had to go in further. And I didn't think he really got to properly stride out until about 150 yards from the line, when he got to that inside rail. He got to really use his long stride like he did at Lingfield. To me, he looked the superior colt of the three. And I think the key thing here is tactics, because you've got Mad Moon in here, and Ballydoyle they'll be like Pep Guardiola here, so they will, trying to devise tactics. They'll have something on Mad Moon's outside, they'll have a horse in front of him, they'll be slowing it up, they'll be quickening it up. I'd imagine they will have so many different scenarios of how this race will unfold, and I'd imagine Mad Moon is the key focal point of their team talk going into tomorrow, because they know Mad Moon is the only horse that comes between them and a Derby double. The Irish Derby is very, very important to Ballydoyle, and I think Anthony Van Dyke will do the double, because I think the race will be run to suit him, and I thought at Epsom he looked like the best horse. But he's favoured, as Graham says. I don't like tipping favourites in these races, but I think he's the most likely winner.
What do you think of Rakan, King George, the 5th Cup winner? Unexposed, but he's got a lot to find, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, don't think he's good enough, no.
No. Okay, nice and simple. We were talking off air about yesterday. I was subbing the story that John Magnier insisted he wanted 5 runners in this, so that there could be 8 altogether, and therefore each way betting. I found that really funny. He clearly fancies one each way. James, there is the 8, as I mentioned. Gives us punters a good option if we do fancy anything each way. But let's just run through the market now.
Yeah, Anthony Van Dyke is our favourite at 6-5. Mad Moon 9-4. Broome 11-4. Rakan 16-1. The rest are 20-1 bar.
Okay, and who's your fancy?
It's a fascinating race. I think it's one of the best Irish derbies I can remember from a competitive point of view. As you said, it's one of those races where you actually go back and watch the English Derby about 10 times, and 10 different people might have 10 different opinions of it. So I think it'll be a great race. At the moment, at the prices, I think Mad Moon should be a bit closer to Anthony Van Dyke. The 6-5 to 9-4, I just think is a little bit of too big of a difference. So I'm going to go for him. I think Mad Moon is the best horse in the race, but I have stamina doubts about him, and I think the lads are going to make it a really testing trip. And obviously he's drawn 1, which is not ideal when there's 5 Ballydoyle horses that he mightn't get the easiest of run-throughs. But again, Broome covered the most amount of ground, and if they go really hard, it could make it into a real stamina test that he could show to his best effect. So I just think it's a fascinating race, but Mad Moon is the one that I ended up landing on.
Yeah, it certainly is a fascinating race, and hopefully things don't get too rough for Mad Moon with the Ballydoyle boys and their tactics. There's plenty of other good action on Saturday, including the Railway Stakes. I'm really excited for that one. We mentioned about the young horses coming through. We've got Siskin, Monarch of Egypt is coming back, and Romero as well for Kevin Ryan in that. That's sure to be a good race. Windsor, the rest of the Curragh card, Newcastle, Chester, Newmarket, York, Doncaster and Lingfield. Have you got any other fancies you want to mention, G-Rod, sorry?
I only have one, and that is in the 5:15 at Newcastle, and it's called Diocles of Rome, number 8, for Rafe Beckett. This one was impressive, very impressive, when winning last time at Doncaster. I thought it looked a massively improved performance, absolutely bolted up, really competitive race. I was going away at the finish, beat Tommy Taylor by 2 lengths, got loads of all-weather form, 2 wins on the all-weather at Kempton last season. I think we'll see Diocles of Rome follow up that victory. I think it's well ahead of the handicapper. That's in the 5:15 at Newcastle.
Thanks very much. And DJ, seeing as I got you and G-Rod momentarily mixed up, you can go next.
Sure, we're just like for like, really. We're like twins.
Yeah, so similar. Don't know how it doesn't happen more often.
Same opinions, same voice, same tone. Sure, I can see how you got mixed up. A couple I like on the Curragh card is in the 6 o'clock. The one I like is David's Charm here for John Joe Walsh and Chris Hayes. Ran a cracker in the Cork Derby, flew home over a mile and a half, finished 6th, crying out for a step up and trip. It's up to 2 miles here. Been dropped a pound by the handicapper, so I'd be fairly sweet on David's Charm, who's a pretty good handicap hurdler. In the Railway Stakes, I just don't like that Monarch of Egypt had a setback and missed Royal Ascot.
I'm Team Siskin. I'm just getting that out of there.
Yeah, you got in there before me. Just listening to Ger and Colin and Shane Lyons talking about Siskin, like he's an absolute gentleman of a horse. Like he just, anything you ask him, ask him to brush your hair or brush your teeth, he'd do it for you. Like they just really love him because he's such a nice individual. And I think professionalism wise, I think could be too professional for these, because he's just literally, he settles in his races, he quickens. I think it was a real shrewd move missing Royal Ascot with Siskin, and the fact that Monarch of Egypt missed his intended target at Royal Ascot because of a little setback, I think that's huge. Romero looked good under a typical Jamie Spencer ride at Doncaster, but to me Siskin deserves his rating of 103, and I think he'll win. And just one other one in the 405, it's a Premier Handicap over a mile, and there's a horse that I have been absolutely following over a cliff, and there's probably people going to listen to this going, I can't believe he's tipping this horse again. But Turnberry Isle will win a mile handicap this season. I don't know when it's going to be, and I wish he would tell me, but to me, a fast pace, the Curragh, Wayne Lorden should be perfect. Maybe he's gone a bit sour, but he's rated 89, and I think he's got so much more ability than that. Maybe he needs to go hurdling or something, but things just might fall into the place for Turnberry Isle. If he does settle and gets into a rhythm and comes through them, I think Turnberry Isle could be a bigger price than he should be in the 405 at the Curragh.
Okay, thanks DJ. Before we get the naps, James, I'll give you a shout. What are you fancying elsewhere on Saturday?
Yep, similar to David once again. I think Siskin is a proper horse. He would have been my Coventry fancy if he'd gone, and I think it was the real shrewd thing to do to keep him for this. Proper prize money here as well, and obviously Ger loves the Curragh and Derby weekend. And once again, David's Charm, I think back down to a mark where he was second in the Irish Desire, which I think to step up to 2 miles, ran a really nice race the last day. I think that'll be very hard to beat, I think.
Yeah, as I said already, sorry for interrupting you DJ, I am really keen on Siskin as well. Lovely horse, and I think he could have a bit of star quality about him. Let's get those Saturday naps right now.
This will not be beaten.
David Jennings, I'll go to you first.
I'd really like to put up James Doyle's 7-timer, but I think his best ride is Glorious Journey in the 3:15 at Newmarket.
Excellent. I wonder if we can get some odds on that somehow. Anyway, G-Rod.
Well, my best bet would probably be Card Sharp in the same race, but seeing as it's the same race as DJ, I'll pick something else, and I'll go for that thing of Godolphin's
Summer
Romance in the opener.
205 at Newmarket.
205 at Newmarket.
Okay, there we go. And James, finally.
I think Sir Maximilian is my best bet of the day.
Really interesting one then. Covered plenty of bases with that. We'll take a quick break now before a really good discussion about the Sunday racing.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Simply place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week, and you'll get a free £10 bet then next week. T&Cs apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Okay, welcome back to this fine instalment of the Friday Tipping Postcast. Now, Sunday, we have some really good action abroad in Saint-Cloud, but there's also Cartmel, Windsor and Uttoxeter to look at nearer to home for us lot anyway. Who have you looked at, G-Rod?
Well, I do love a meeting at Cartmel. I mean, have you ever been to Cartmel?
Not, it's on the list.
Oh, I would love to go to Cartmel.
I've had the sticky toffee pudding though, I would recommend it.
Have you?
Have you had it?
No, I never had the Cartmel sticky toffee. When I go, I'll definitely make a point. It is a long old way from London though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, I do love a Cartmel meeting, and I do like a winner there. And there's of course legend running there in the 305, Wells de Lune. He's unbeaten in 4 starts of the track, absolutely loves it there, and he's thrown in on his best form, really well handicapped. Peter Bowen won a race with a similar type the other night. I can't remember where it was, Newton Abbott I think. Judge Earl, very similar type. James Bowen was riding, Peter Bowen training, and a horse that seemed to have lost his way but was really well handicapped and bounced right back to form, was heavily backed as well, 33s into 12s. And I think that Wells de Lune can win the 235 in similar fashion. And it's also worth mentioning the 340 because they've got another one going. Sorry, 415 I think it is. Yes, 4.15. Play the Ace. There's another one for James Bowen and Peter Bowen. They absolutely usually do farm these sorts of races in the summer. And the fact that Judge Earl won the other night, just thought, are they about to spark into their, top gear? And this is another well handicapped horse that they've got in nicely. That's Play the Ace to 4.15. And then that race at St Cloud, as I always call it, in my finest French accent. The 4.35 at St Cloud, there's Headman's running. Headman is one of the most exciting young 3-year-olds around. Obviously won that London Gold Cup at Newbury last time out in good fashion. The only thing is, didn't he pull it out at Royal Ascot because of soft ground? And it's meant to be soft ground, apparently, at St Cloud. I find that hard to believe, because aren't they going through a really, really hot period
heat
wave in France? But apparently the ground is soft. So we'll see if that runs at St Cloud, that Headman. But that's a really exciting horse, Headman.
Yeah, I think you've read my notes here, because I'm about to do some 10-second tips in a minute, and he was one of them. DJ, have you got a fancy at St Cloud?
No, I didn't look, actually. Sorry. The one I only liked one on Sunday. There's no Irish racing, which is bizarre for the middle of summer, day off for stable staff. But in the 4.05 at Utoxer, it's the listed Summer Cup, which is always a decent handicap chase. The one I liked was Dragon Destrival for Nicky Henderson and Daryl Jacob. It's Simon Munir and Isaac Swade horse, and it's the second time after wind up. This is one of my new fascinations, horses that are running second time after wind up. This horse was third at Perth last time, off mark 141. Same mark here, but travelled real keen and seemed to be really enthusiastic. A little bit too keen, didn't quite get home. On some of its form from last season, winning at winning at Foss Lass and third at Newbury. It strikes me as a young up-and-coming staying chaser that could have a lot to offer. I think Utoxer will suit, and Daryl Jacob rides. So Dragon Destrival and the 4.05 at Utoxer is my only fancy on Sunday.
Brilliant. And James, finally.
Yeah, the Grand Prix at St Cloud is a bit of a belter of a race. There's a heap of horses in here that you'd know, so we actually have it priced up as well. Morgan and Le Fay is our 7-4 favourite. Lati Dar 3-1, Coronet 100-30, Marmello 7-1, Thundering Blue 8-1, Asbatur is 10-1, is 14-1 bar. I think Marmello is a pretty solid each way bet.
Stealing
nothing
my thunder.
There. I just didn't think he handled lefts on the last day, and again, I have absolutely no idea what the ground's going to be. I nearly would have thought, if you asked me what it was going to be, I just would have said firm. But if it's soft, I think obviously he'll stay, and he's good conditions or good form on soft ground. But yeah, it's a funny old race. And there's an interesting little novice in Windsor, the 350. There's a horse, the Phoenix Thoroughbreds, out of Geoffrey. You might remember, she was a good French filly a couple of years ago, called Albatar. Now, he went off 10-1 on his debut, and I thought he just ran an absolute blinder. He was in the rear, took a keen hold, and just kind of came home really nicely. But the market should be formed by an 89 rated horse called Vasiliev by Clive Cox. So I think Albatar could be a bet there, and you'd probably 3 or 4 to 1 shot, I'd say.
Okay, again, I think you've read my notes, because Marmello's on my tipping list. Anyway, that'll do for us all today. Thanks for your selections, lads. Plenty of ground covered there wherever you're punting out this weekend. As usual, please remember to rate, review and subscribe, and I'll be back on Monday with a weekend review. We'll see you then.
Paddy Power Games has over 250 of your favourites to play online, and we're going to attempt to name them all in this 10-second ad before the T's and C's kick in. There's Blackjack, 18+, begambleaware.org.